Press play.
All right, so let's get right into our main topic of the show. We're going to get into Drive, which came out in 2011. I didn't know this. When the opening credits start, it says it's based on a book. Michael, did you read is the book called Drive? Did you read the book that this is based off of or no?
No, I've never read the book. It is named Drive. I've never had the opportunity to read it. I've always thought about it. I don't know. I've had mixed feelings. I don't know if it was going to spoil the overall movie for me or how I thought about the movie. So I was like, maybe I shouldn't read it because it might be different or something like that. But there is a sequel to Drive. I'm not even joking.
What?
It's called it's called Driven. And it's the second book. There's not like a movie. Yeah, he's got to pull up the phone.
Oh, you got me. I was like, wait.
It is a book called Driven. That's the sequel book to the first one. They never made a second movie, FYI, but the second book is called Driven. That's what it's called, which is
Okay.
kind of funny within itself. I don't know if they'll ever
It's kinda
adopt that. It is kind of dumb. Takes place in Arizona, though. I thought it was interesting.
Okay.
Very weird plot, very different from the first one, but it's based off a book, believe it or not. It's interesting because it was a completely different director. I think Hugh Jackman was supposed to be the driver originally. I forgot who the director was.
Really?
Then they wanted Ryan Gosling, and Ryan Gosling would only do it if Nicholas Winding Refn would direct it.
Why do you think that is?
In
Like,
general,
what did Nicholas Winding Refn, like, what was his, what was his, like, rep at that moment to be like, I want this guy to do it?
Good question. I don't know if they worked on previous movies before, Ryan Gosling and Nicholas Winding Refn. I knew they were friends. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head like what it was. I think at that point, I mean, Nicholas Winding Refn was still pretty much doing what he always does and just making really artsy fartsy kind of like movies and stuff like that. So I think maybe Ryan Gosling just saw the potential in the script, but he was like, it's going to need a very specific style or vision for it to work, and they might have really good chemistry for that to be able to be possible. I remember hearing the story a long time ago, but I always thought that was interesting that it was going to be potentially a completely different director and a completely different actor with Hugh Jackman. I was like, Wolverine, like really? Like that's who you guys were thinking of? I was like,
that would have given off a completely different vibe the entire
I don't know if I would have liked it as much as a kid when I watched it. So I'm glad things shook down the way they did, basically. But
yeah. I mean, continuing on with the credits, like Michael said, Nicholas Winding Refn directed the movie. The writers were Hossein Amini and James Salas, and we got our cast of characters: Ryan Gosling as Driver, Carey Mulligan as Irene, Bryan Cranston as Shannon, Albert Brooks as Bernie Rose, Oscar Isaac as Standard, Christina Hendricks as Blanche, and Ron Perlman as Nino. Before we get into the rest of the movie, like we kind of were talking about earlier about Nicholas's rep, let me know, what is this your first Nicholas movie, or did you watch anything before this?
No, I didn't know anybody from this movie. To give you context, so this is probably the movie everyone, when people ask me like, what made you want to go study film, or like, was there a movie or something like that, I always point to this one because I still remember clear as day going to the AMC in Frisco when I was like 13 or 14, probably like around 12 or 13. And I was like still hanging out with my friends because I grew up in a pretty small town. So the cool thing was to go to the mall. So we would go to the movies all the time. I get a $20 bill. And we'd go do that. So it was funny because I remember Dollhouse or something like that with Daniel Craig. It was like the movie we bought the ticket for because this one was rated R. Obviously, you got a guy getting his head smashed in like a pumpkin in an elevator. It's like probably wasn't the most age appropriate at that time, but I remember buying the ticket for that, and then we snuck in to go see Drive. And like within the first 5 minutes of that movie, I was glued. I loved everything about it, and just it did not let go of the gas for me. So that movie always stuck with me. Yeah, no pun intended. Wow, good catch on that. And that honestly just made me just really wanting to make movies from the get-go. Was that movie? I'd never seen anything by Nicholas Winding Refn. And to be honest, even the movies I watched of his after the fact, like I think nothing really holds. I mean, stylistically, they're all really beautiful to look at, but I don't think anything's ever going to hold a candle to Drive, in my
Interesting.
perspective. Um, it is interesting because like before the podcast, I did do some research, and I know some of his inspirations were like Le Samurai, which is like this
Hmm.
French film about this hitman. That's really good. I've never seen it before. And then there was like a Michael Mann movie from like the '80s called The Driver. And there's like a lot of things that it takes away from like those movies as inspiration. He just kind of
Okay.
incorporates in the classic neon winding refn, vision of just lots of bright colors and stuff. So I
Definitely.
thought it was a phenomenal movie through and through. It's just funny to me now. Like I know there's a lot of memes around that movie coming out now, which is hilarious to like
Really?
watch. Yeah, it's like a film bro movie, is what they're calling
Okay.
it now, which is funny
Okay.
because have you heard about that? Like literally me movies, anything like that before?
No, dude, I
Okay,
haven't.
that's your homework after this podcast is to learn about
Okay.
literally me movies. But then there's a couple they use Drive a lot, American Psycho, Taxi Driver, like all those movies are called like literally me movies, and it's just so funny
Okay.
because it's
Okay.
edgy. But yeah, man, it's a phenomenal movie. I'm very very interested to hear what you're gonna say. I'm just gonna say if you don't like it, I might have to leave the podcast. But no pressure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just to start off, I have no like history with the Nicholas Winding Refn at all. I only know him because of Hideo Kojima. Uh,
Oh, really?
Hideo
Yeah, because they're
Kojima and him,
friends.
they're very close friends, and Nicholas Winding Refn is in Death Stranding, and so as like an
What?
NPC. So he's like he's like a
That's so
guy that,
funny.
and he's actually one of the main one of the main NPCs of the game. But I don't think it's him
Wow.
acting. They just use his, his looks for it. So that's all I know of him. I know that when you and I even began talking about, let's go dig into some movies from the past and let's review them and talk about them. I know Drive was always one of the big ones for you, and so I've actually been very excited to check this one out. And I will say, starting from the beginning of the movie, I'm just going to give just my no spoilers review real fast and just give it to you just plainly. The movie was awesome. I loved it stylistically. It is really cool. What's interesting is I haven't watched any of his other movies. Actually, when I was done with this one, I was about to just go watch another one called Only God Forgives. But then I was like, I had like 3 hours, and I was like, I'm just gonna get some other stuff done, do some other things. But you can see that the neon part carries on. It's almost as if it evolves, to the point where he has a movie called Neon Demon.
Yeah.
Um, and so you can see that, in this movie, the blue and the red, or the blue and the orange, is very subtle. Like the left side of the character has to have a little bit of blue, and the right side has to have a little bit of orange. Almost some of the main scenes of like the action at night and things like that. But overall, it was cool aesthetically. I thought the beginning was a little slow, just to the point where I was like, I'm not quite sure what's the story here, because I got a little confused with him. Okay, he's an action driver, like he's a driver for movies, and then they're trying to get him to actually race a race car, and then
He can do it
he's getting
all.
to, yeah, exactly, and he's getting to know this girl Irene, and then the husband comes back, and I was like, okay, where exactly? And then once the moment happens when you know there's a moment in the movie where he's doing this one thing for the dad, the husband of Irene. And I'm not going to go into spoilers yet, but once that moment happens and that there's that link up, and he's like, "I'll help you do this thing." From then on, I was like glued. I was like, "Oh, what in the?" It's a guy that literally he broke his code. It's almost like he broke his code. Like he wasn't gonna try to get too close. He was gonna try to do anything. He was trying to be as serious. He barely talked, but he opened up just one time, and because of that, he found himself in this situation that he was never supposed to be a part of, and now it became much bigger, and he was never supposed to be there, and now he has to face these consequences, and he's trying to fix the mess. And so that whole thing was dope. Ryan Gosling is dope as heck in this movie, just because, especially the fact that he just says nothing. He has some lines here or there, but he's very like stoic to an extent,
Hmm.
and also to an extent where he also comes across as if maybe he doesn't look like he knows exactly what's going on. But as the movie progresses, it's almost like he's hiding things that even people that are surrounding him and us as a viewers were like, wait, he must have a much different past than we have any idea about because he knows how to do these things. Where I'm like, what?
How?
So yeah, exactly. So with that being said, I enjoyed the ending of it and the lead up to the end and just this whole action that the last third of the movie took over, and it was amazing. So at a surface level, Michael, I want to know, what are your thoughts on Drive on a surface level?
So I'll give you a bit of a story just to tell you how like deeply impacted this movie like had an imprint on me as like a 14 or 15-year-old. So after I had my first job when I was working, about when I was 15, I worked at a factory. I was making $7.25 an hour. So I was working in a crusty, nasty, hot Texas summer factory, working 40 hours, making basically nothing, right?
Oh boy.
So one of the first things I did when I started making money was I started looking online, and I bought a replica jacket
Let's
from
go,
the
dude.
movie. I still have
Let's
it. It's
go.
great. The only difference was it was all black and black. I didn't want the exact same one because I knew if I got the white one, I was gonna make it all dirty and shit. So I was like, no, I gotta get this one. So, and if you totally talk to anybody from high school that probably knew me, they would probably remember that jacket really well because I would wear that
Wow.
thing religiously.
That's awesome.
Well, not at that time. I was getting roasted left and right. Probably I don't know if I'd wear it now. But it was it was honestly a great movie, and it was one of those things where I was like, I want to be like that guy. Like I wanted to be. He was like the James Dean of our time, I guess, in that movie Drive. Whatever Rebel Without a Cause was in the 50s, that's what Drive was to me, and probably supposedly a lot of other people across the world. So I was like, this is like a really phenomenal movie. What I love about this movie is just its simplicity and its plot. It's not trying to be overly complicated. It's just, a guy loves a girl. He's gonna do everything to like, protect her, do this and that, even going against his code, like he said, whatever that looks like throughout the movie. And it's just like, because he got so close, the different repercussions of that, of trying to do the right thing, kind of leads him down to. And it is kind of a sad, bittersweet movie towards the end. But I think overall, I mean, phenomenal soundtrack. I think I still listen to some of the music from that movie. Honestly, really shaped the music I listened to. It shaped a lot of different things for me. Just the aesthetic. I think it did a lot for like, synthwave and vaporwave and the kind of the aesthetic that people kind of associate now. It was very cool to me back then. Still cool to me now. And I think, I think it's one of those movies that probably should get more credit than it already does, but I think it's almost like a meme now how much people like this movie.
That's sad, dude.
A little bit. But in general, I still think it's one of those hidden gems that I always like to show people who haven't seen it before. The same way, like when I try to share The Alchemist. It's one of those books I really like to give out to people like during Christmas or something like that because it really impacted me. So it's one of those things I like to share with people all the time. Overall, though, phenomenal movie. I'm glad you really enjoyed it. First and foremost, I was a little scared. You might have thought I was stupid or something. I was like, "Oh boy, this is going to be awkward for our long podcast." I think just phenomenal like acting across the board as well. Just with
what a cast.
Yeah, right. Like it's just so random. You have a young Oscar Isaac, like before like Star Wars, before Ex Machina, before all that, like still making his way around town, making a name for himself.
Yeah.
You have Albert Brooks, you have Ron Perlman, super big powerhouses. Bryan Cranston, I think he was still doing Breaking Bad around that time, or
he must have.
He just started. I don't know, but phenomenal performances, of course. Carey Mulligan, Ryan Gosling. But yeah, great movie overall. That's my 30,000 foot overview of the movie. But I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, we can completely open it up now to just full spoilers and everything.
Sweet.
And get into it all. But I will say,
warning.
Warning for those who are watching and listening. I do want to hit it. I do want to say this though, and it's not necessarily a spoiler, but I want to get your thoughts on this. I felt like the music, to an extent, created this weird atmosphere to the movie just a bit to me. The music was great as a whole, but I feel like if you would have taken that music out and put something else in, it would be a completely different movie.
Oh,
And
100%.
I felt like the music at times felt lighthearted, and I was like, man, this just seems a little too upbeat for the moment. Like, but I'm guessing that's what he wanted, and it was interesting choices. What I go back and say, let's change that music. Probably not, because I feel like the music is what makes it what it is. But it was very interesting music choices. Would you agree with that?
I think honestly, and I think even the director and Ryan Gosling kind of mentioned this about the character of the driver. It's like they wanted someone that seemed like they watched too many action movies like growing up, or too many movies growing
Mm,
up. So I
okay.
think if you think of it in the perspective like we're watching this maybe through the driver's eyes, it gives you a whole different context. You know what I mean? Because it
That
is
makes
super
sense.
romanticized, super Hollywood. You know what I mean? I think the movie is just like one big stinky love letter to like Hollywood action movies. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
think that's what's great about it, is that the music is so complementary to the scenes. It's almost like you're watching a music video at some points. You know what I mean? And they go hand in hand really well. And I think if you put like Katy Perry's fireworks just in there, like like literally anything else, like I think it would have just killed the movie for me. I think Cliff Martinez did a phenomenal job and just scoring the movie. Um, I remember just listening to the soundtrack forwards and backwards, and the different artists that did collaborate on the album, and just how good the music was on its own, but also with the movie as well. So yeah, no, I think it's supposed to have that dreamlike state, where it's
Mm,
almost like borderline surreal, almost like fantasy,
yeah.
but it is, I think, because it's we're really viewing it more so from the driver's perspective, in my humble opinion. I think, but
It does add to the neon aesthetic of it all. Like the song "A Real Hero," I'm never gonna be able to hear that song and not think Drive from that one. Like
yeah, yeah, it,
it's they're solely connected to each other. So
intertwined, yeah,
yeah.
100%. Which is funny because I think that song was about the guy who landed the plane in. You remember back in the day, Sully, what's his name? I forget.
Oh,
He's
okay,
like,
yeah,
if you
yeah,
listen to
yeah.
the lyrics, that's literally what they're singing about, which is funny. But
That's so
uh,
random. Okay, I didn't even
right,
didn't even know that. I
yeah,
didn't even know that. I think what's interesting about this movie is that the movie sets up Driver. I'm
Mhm.
assuming we never hear his actual name, correct?
Nope,
Okay,
no,
sets
no,
up Driver, and I like the first few things that we're hearing is practically his everything that he's all about. Like it starts off and he's like, you have this much amount of time. A minute before that, a minute after that, it's none of my business. I'm out of there or whatnot. And you see him, practically setting the groundwork of how his character is. We get the introduction to, what he actually does for a job, and he picks up those guys, and then he's off, and then he's getting chased by the police, and then he hides inside of a parking garage, and he's listening to the basketball game as well as the police scanners at the same time, and
right,
then he parks, gets out, boom, he walks past a cop, he makes it out, nobody noticing him, and then title screen hits, and that's your introduction to Driver. And I feel like it's such like there's so much character in all that. And he doesn't really say a word other than the first couple of words that like sentences he says at the beginning to set up it all up. And I'm like, this is perfect because
yeah,
one, now we know he's a great driver, obviously. Um, he's like this ability to that he knows what he's doing. Like the whole time I was like, when he's in his room, the basketball game was playing.
hmm,
And to an extent, I was like, okay, is he quirky like that? Like, is he just a big fan of basketball? And
right,
this is just a side job for him. He's like, I just really want to know what's going on with the Clippers. But I guess it was just showing how he just is that intertwined and is able to multitask. And he's like, I need to be here at this exact time at the game because then this is when the crowd will be out, so that way I can hide in the crowd. And then I'm listening to the police scanners, and like it's so much going on for this character, but he's so professional at it all. I thought it was such a
yeah.
great basis for it.
I think it's great. I think that scene lives rent free in my brain all the time. Just because, like, I mean, I just think about that time, and I remember like the Fast and Furious movies being a big thing. I mean, they still are, and they're still doing them. And I
Yeah,
just love like how it's not like that because I think Fast and Furious like
definitely.
they're fun, they're entertaining, whatever, but it's like so unrealistic and it's just borderline silly. Like even yesterday, like I was telling you before we recorded, I was watching Top Gun Maverick again, right?
Oh yeah,
Great movie. It's fun. Like there's a lot of great action sequences, but it's like it's just so over the top action packed. Like I couldn't see
yes,
someone driving through an explosion like that. The way they do it, like Fast and Furious, like that's just dumb.
yeah.
So I like the simplicity of it, and almost like kind of make it full circle. It reminds me of like Better Call Saul, like Breaking Bad in that
Mm,
sense, where it's like the crimes are super like meticulous, but it's realistic, which makes it more believable, and for me, more
definitely.
entertaining and lives a little bit more in my head because it's not so over the top. Um, the movie's not full always like that. I think there's like some car chases that are pretty like over the top in the middle of the
Yeah,
movie, but
yeah,
it still never gets like Fast and Furious levels of like stupid, like you're like
yeah.
flying over like three helicopters in a plane, and then you're going into outer space. Like I'm like, what the an
No, yeah,
8-year-old write
definitely.
this?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's
So,
what's good about it is that they never cross that line of like campy action.
right.
And there is, like you said, there's a moment like when the chase is happening after the pawn shop incident, and driver does like a 180 with the car, and he's driving backwards, and then but that's the furthest that we go. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, okay, but like, I'm glad that that was the furthest they went because if they went anything further, if it was like he drove up the back of a truck like ramped up and then like jumped back down and whatever, like at that point I'm like, okay, then that kind of broke the realism of this film. And so yeah, I don't know, I love the constraint that Nicholas had in regards to directing the film as a whole. um and it's setting up these characters in a particular way. Like, Bryan Cranston's there uh as this guy that is like, not, it's almost like you think that Bryan Cranston's character Shannon is using Driver, but then I feel like Driver's actually probably using everybody else, but they don't quite know it. Like, he's there for a reason, but you don't know exactly what his motives are. And I don't know. Like, so I guess, Michael, as the movie continues on, I want to know, what are your thoughts in regards to the relationship between Driver and Irene and the son. Him seeing, like, we're seeing him more become more human. And there's that song that they actually play a couple times where the line is, I think it's A Real Hero, but there's a line in it where it's like being more human, and it's actually talking about human. And it's like the moments when he seems like he's becoming more human with these people. So what are your thoughts with the relationship between Irene and Driver?
I think the running theme of this movie is just centered around broken dreams. It's that sounds really dramatic, but if you think about it, like what does Shannon want to do? Like he wants to be able to have like have a race car team or something like that. Same thing with Bernie Rose. He wants to, kind of go clean, have like this business right here with the pizzeria and all that, and just be able to
Yeah.
run the race car. The driver just wants to feel like a person, not just be like this abstract shadow living a double life. He wants to feel like a person and have a family. Irene wants like a sustainable father figure. You know what I mean? And nobody in this movie gets anything that they want.
Yeah.
That's the sad part. You know what I mean? It's just like to the great lengths that this kind of character goes to just kind of make this happen. Um, and I think I don't know. Maybe they're all using each other to an extent, but I think in general, like I think the legitimate love I guess the driver has for Irene is very real. I mean, I don't know too many guys. I don't know if I would squish a man's head with my heel in an elevator for my girlfriend. That might be a stretch, but it's there, and it's just like. And speaking of that scene, I think that's when the reality just really hits of just how uncompatible their realities are. You know what I mean? That's where it kind of snaps. Like she's seeing him for like the first time, this darker side of him, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And I think just
Yeah.
even the cinematography is so good, because he's got like his back towards her. So you're saying like the scorpion in full view or whatever, and he's got blood smeared on his face, and it's like she's seeing him as like the deadly predator that he can be,
Yeah.
and like that's crazy, right? So I think in the end of the day, it's just like everybody's wants and desires kind of becomes their undoing. Because I mean, I know it's very kind of like I didn't really pick this up until I watched this movie like the third or fourth time. But like I was like, why are they even like robbing a pawn shop? But I think it had to do with Nero, who had like this money that he stole from like the mob from the East Coast, and he was like
Yeah.
laundering it through the pawn shop or something like that. So he wanted to
Yeah.
make it seem like, oh, the money got robbed, haha.
Yeah.
And so you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
like his way of just becoming more powerful and actually, and it just piles on, right? It's just like that everyone's wants and dreams become their own undoing up until the very end. You know, where the driver literally gets stabbed in the stomach trying to protect this woman. And
Yeah.
it's when that moment he just learns to let go, you know, and just drives off that, you know, he can really just, everyone can kind of coexist respectfully, so to speak. And it sucks because in the end of the day, it just doesn't get the girl or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting dynamics among the characters. I think definitely Shannon is a opportunist over here, paying him $7.25 slave wage in California. That's just wrong.
I love that you say that nobody, like, everyone has these dreams and desires and they never get them, and that's a really, really good point. And I, talking about the lighting a bit, I know we were talking about this, is the whole neon aspect of it all. He's so good with his lighting, like in regards to compositing these scenes. And that elevator scene is great because this is kind of the first time where we see, like, it is actually like he is forcefully changing the light to portray something, because they're in the elevator and then it all becomes dimmer and then the spotlight becomes more on Irene, and then it opens up a bit when he turns around and they kiss each other, and then he's like almost like I gotta do this thing, and then he turns around, then the light fills the elevator back up, like they're back in reality, like they're no longer focusing on each other, and then that's when the action hits and he
Right.
just pummels that dude with his foot.
Disturbing, right? It's like a pumpkin, bro. Sounds like a pumpkin.
And this is not the first. Is this the first moment where we get that bloody action, or is it in the room with Blanche? I believe it's the room with Blanche when we get like her head gets shot with the shotgun, right?
I think like the first time we see any sort of blood is really with Standard. We get this head
good point.
like shot.
Good point.
And I was like that. Then I think that's like again, like that's goes back to this idea of like this character is someone who's watched a lot of movies and he thinks he's like an action star in his own movie. And I mean, he's probably right. It is in that case. But I think it's just those bits of reality that peek into this like fantasy that he's creating. He's almost like a knight trying to save this like damsel in distress from the dragon, right? But the reality is a lot more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? More real and horrific than fantasy would lend itself to be. So it's like he's seeing this like person die right in front of him. But you also get the feeling this isn't like the first time he's had to deal with something like this. Like he pushed the mattress up. He shot this dude. He shot the dudes. They shot Blanche's head off. They shot the other dude's head. It's pretty gruesome. I love the way the light just creeps over him, like when he's going back into the bathroom slowly.
Yeah.
Like he's sinking back into the shadow, so to speak. But yeah, it's like this movie has really bloody and like impactful scenes like that. But there's always like a reason behind the violence, and that's what I like about it. It's like it's not just violence for violence's sake. It's to contrast the rest of the movie that I would say is pretty tranquil, in contrast to like very beautifully shot like scenes, in contrast to some of the more graphic parts of the movie. So they sort of just like the brutality of reality and those snaps back into reality versus like the fantasy world the driver kind of lives in throughout the movie. So
yeah, dude. I guess overall for the film, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else I want to add to the whole aspect as a whole. I mean, I didn't expect the movie to be that violent, to be quite honest. I didn't even know what to expect at all. I honestly thought a lot of it was going to be just a ton of driving. Yeah, exactly. Nope. Like, and that's kind of, I don't know why I expected that. It's called Drive, obviously.
Drive. Sales
but
the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. But it was great. I'm the kind of person where if it's gory and that kind of stuff, I don't mind. Like to an extent, I'm like, yeah, let's go, dude. Let's go all the way. I want to see. Let's get as crazy as we can. And I think
Man.
what's interesting is I've played Hotline Miami,
Oh, it's
and
a good
I don't know
game.
if you've played it. And I
Yeah.
looked it up, and supposedly Drive had some sort of inspiration for it. But there's so much with the mask that he puts on when he goes to the pizzeria to look in real quick, and then just the neon colors, and then the music is very synthwave, like you said. Hotline Miami is just all of that in a video game,
Yeah.
and so watching this movie, I was like, man, I'm getting so much Hotline Miami vibes, and it was kind of the other way around. Hotline Miami's getting vibes from this movie for sure.
It did a lot,
So it's
man.
great.
I'm telling you, like it really changed the game, and I think like in a time now where we like hyper focus on like nostalgia and stuff like that in like the 80s. I think Drive was doing it way before everybody else was. I'm gonna die on by that sword. I feel like, you know, I'm gonna sound like a hipster, but like they made it cool before everybody else kind of jumped on that bandwagon. So I was just like, yeah, when I was like in college, I was like, oh, now you guys like this stuff all of a sudden. Like, wow,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying,
yeah.
it's been here this whole time. But no, yeah, Hotline Miami is a phenomenal game. Do you see yourself watching Only God Forgives?
I can see actually I can see myself from this movie on. I'm curious just because I saw a review for Only God Forgives, and supposedly the guy who was reviewing it, he did like a video before that review. I guess when Only God Forgives was showing off at Cannes, it got booed
Mhm.
by everybody there. And then
But did not
this
know
guy
that.
was and this guy was reviewing Only God Forgives after he made that video, just talking about it being booed. And to him, his whole point was like his main takeaway is that the cinematography is so beautiful, but the story is
Mhm.
lacking. And so I think going forward, I will still watch Only God Forgives and possibly Neon Demon. But I'm probably gonna go just to see like what kind of eye Nicholas has in regards to his filmmaking.
I without going into spoilers, I think Only God Forgives is way more abstract. It's a
Mm,
little bit harder to follow than Drive. I didn't personally find myself as impacted. I was like, oh, okay, this is a movie. And that was about the extent of it. And I was like, this is something. Is it beautiful cinematography wise? Yeah. Is the lighting amazing? Yeah. Is Ryan Gosling pretty good in it? Yeah. Just if you're gonna go in expecting Drive, you might find yourself disappointed. So it might
okay.
be better just to come in with like a clear no like expectations of like what to expect. But
Were you disappointed?
I think I was more disappointed because I was expecting something like Drive and to get that kind of feeling from the movie the same way I got from Drive, and it just didn't do it the same way for me.
Gotcha.
I definitely remember the movie being way gorier than Drive. It's a little bit more of a nasty film than Drive, to be honest with you.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but it's very abstract, I guess. You just have to watch. It's hard to explain. It's like it's not like the plot's weird. The plot's weird. So
Yeah, I saw somebody real quick, like I think it was on IMDb that I saw it. I think it goes into like I forgot what's the word, the Ophideias complex or something like that. And
oh yeah, yeah.
these
It's like into
crazy, yeah, something like that. So I when I saw that, I was like, I'm not quite sure
how to
how
feel
set
about
up I am for this. Yeah,
it.
so we'll see. Michael, do you have anything else you want to say in regards to Drive before we get off?
If you have not watched it, definitely check it out. I definitely have like a deeper appreciation. I love the memes, honestly. Like I know a lot of people are just like I don't want to say shitting on the movie because I don't think that's quite right, but like memeing on people that are like obsessed with it. I wish
Uh-huh.
those were around like when I was younger because I probably would have thought they were even funnier. But it's cool to see. Well, I mean, to me, in the other day, it just means that people are watching the movie, and I think that's great. I think it's a phenomenal movie. Um, yeah, so if you haven't watched it, please check it out. Let us know what you think, or throw a brick through our windows and tell us how much you hated it and how we ruined
Yeah,
your life.
yeah.
That's completely reasonable. But yeah.
Yeah, I love this movie. It was great. I highly recommend it for you guys out there. And before we sign off, we have Michael and I made a list of the movies we wanted to watch. And so I've been putting them in this random generator, and then whatever comes out, that's the movie we'll watch next.
Let's
And
see if
so
Robert
Michael has
gets
been
one.
getting it like the past 3 times.
Yep.
Like you've just
Yeah.
been getting yours over and over and over again. So
It's nuts.
the list stands here. We have Let There Be Blood, Silence, Godfather, Seven, La Strada, A Marriage Story, and Cinema Paradiso. So I got the thing right here, and I'm going to spin it. I don't know what's going to land.
He's spinning. He's spinning. I'm so scared.
There's one. This is tense, dude. What's it on? What did it do?
Oh,
A marriage. Another Michael one, dude. Oh my god.
I think it's broken, man. I think it's broken. Hey, A Marriage Story is good. A Marriage Story is very good. That's a tearjerker. That's a good one.
Dude. Yeah, Vanessa's not gonna watch that one with me because she did not like that movie at all.
She didn't like it?
No.
What?
No. But I enjoyed that movie a lot. I thought it was great. So I'm actually looking forward to rewatching it again.
Bring Vanessa into the podcast. I got some choice words. Just kidding.
Okay. Well, guys, thanks for joining us here on the Press Play Podcast. My name is Rob. This is Michael. We just reviewed Drive by Nicholas Winding Refn. The next movie that we'll be reviewing is A Marriage Story. You can see it on Netflix. So, buckle up, watch it, get yourself ready for the next episode. Until next time. Peace out.
Peace.